What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be discussing a bit of the future of Yu-Gi-Oh! Just like I did last week when I went over Age of Overlord, there's one specific card in the set that I think will change the meta drastically. On top of everything else, it is a card I really want to dedicate an entire video to because I think it will shape a lot of what we see in terms of non-engine for next format, and even just which engines are going to be viable. So it's none other than SP Little Knight. Throw it up on screen here. This card is phenomenal, and I will read it out to you real quickly. This is a Link 2 monster requiring 2 effect monsters. So important to note, you can't use Nibiru, but other than that, everything is fair game. This card is Link summoned using a Fusion Synchro Exceed or a Link monster as material. Strike a card on the field and banish it. Also, your monsters can't attack directly for the rest of this turn. Cool. When your opponent activates a card or effect, quick effect, you trigger 2 face-up monsters on the field, including at least 1 monster you control. Banish both until the end phase, and you can only use each effect of SP Little Knight once per turn. So, this card is nuts, and I'll explain why. Obviously, the one that comes to mind immediately, partially because of the name, is IP Masquerena. You can IP on their turn to summon this, and then when it's summoned, target card on the field of the grave to banish it. So it's important to hit key graveyard pieces, even like Shyama. And notice it also doesn't restrict yourself to monsters. So if you were ever worried about targeting like a purely monster and they had a street on the field, this answers the street, which is really good. It's absolutely generic, and you know, it makes IP multiple interrupts at a very low price. And then obviously you can use it outside of IP as well. You can just summon it on your own turn aggressively. And yes, it stops you from lethal shotting your opponent, exception being Pearly. You can still push through fields way easier now with this card, because you summon, you banish, and if they want to chain an effect to try and negate it, second effect triggers, and then you force out 2 interrupts with 1 play. And if you have Link 1s in your deck, this is fantastic. Because if you're able to make like a Link Rebo, an Anima, a Striker Dragon, one of those type of cards beforehand, and then make this, and you're only actually investing 2 monsters into it, then you really are taking a good trade. A lot of the time, Effect Negation is pretty good because you force your opponent to make higher investment monsters, and then if you negate those, you're actually trading up in value even if the card itself seems like a neutral in card economy. SP Little Knight changed that because that should now force several cards of interaction in one go. Obviously, there are some exceptions, and that's where we'll see non-engine start to shine. Now, I also wanted to get into a bit of the OCG meta, so I'm going to check out that. I'm going to show you the website that is great for checking out the future of the OCG, and do a bit of analysis. I'm going to show you where SP Little Knight stands there. Now, I guess before I continue even further, I already jumped into the video, I guess, but go check out tsx1.com, use the code POTATO10, and get 10% off on your sleeves. I'll be at Indy, I'll be at Richmond, and I'll be at Bologna and Bolivia, all 4 events. SP Knight probably in all 4 of my decks for those events. And with those, I will also have my Team Sam sleeves. So if you want to join me like that, check out the site. Okay, so this is Road of the King. This is a great way to see what the meta looks like. This is posted about a month ago. In fact, actually looks like exactly a month ago from when I'm recording this. But I wanted to look at some examples of the meta. And now we can see here the Rescue Ace is the most popular deck, and it's doing very well. And a lot of people attribute the success to the Diabell Star, giving you ways to play through stuff like Ash, which this deck had a problem with before because, you know, after you got stopped in the emergency, your plays were limited. Now Diabell Star and the Sinful Spoil package means you can consistently push through. I, however, also think a lot of success is attributed to this card here, SP Little Knight. Now, several other deck lists you look at will actually have multiple of this card in playlist, or not playlist, their deck list. And I think this fixes a couple problems the deck had. For example, if you ever played this deck and you went first against Purely, you'll know that Purely Street is really troublesome. If you're trying to build a board to beat Purely, you want to almost ensure there's an IP there to make Unicorn. Now, obviously, it's a way higher card commitment, and you're also losing the advantage that that SP Little Knight provides. With SP Little Knight, you don't have to discard a card to banish the street, but then also you'll have the extra interrupt still off Little Knight for later when they try rank up their Purley or whatever. Now in this deck as well, you have access to Link 1s. You can see the Anima here. It could be something else as well, such as Al Mirage. to meet the fire requirement for Sunlight Wolf. That's something we've seen pop up. But either way, just any sort of Link 1 like that will give you access to SP Little Knight with only a 2-monster commitment. It's great for clearing fields. Like, say you start with Diabell Star and you want to start sending off random bullshit you have to summon Hydrant. You get the search out, they let it all go through because they want to hold their resources for Turbulence. Made a mistake. Because now you make Anima, now you make Little Knight, you force out whatever they have, and if they chain anything, you get rid of a second card. And then you should be free to play on the next card. And that's really strong. That's I think what we're going to be seeing a lot with SP Little Knight is its great ability to push through fields as well as protect them. In both scenarios are scenarios that would come up many, many times in a tournament. And if that starts to happen, you start to notice it's a defining card in the metagame. And if you look at other deck lists here as well, the decks that are doing well are decks that can use SP Little Knight effectively. This deck here has SP Little Knight. Even though IP typically isn't even that important in this deck, you make space for it because this just trades for their pushes or for their disruptions so much. And again, they made space for Anima because it means normal summoning Glow Up Bulb or Jet Synchron is actually a meaningful push now. Something that it never was before. Because even if we look at not Link 3s, if we look at Link 2s, what Link 2s could really be aggressive? You had Nightmare monsters, which all required discards and were way more specific with what they could affect. This was really it. You had Anaconda before. Obviously, it's banned now, but Anaconda required bricks in the deck, and also locks you out of summoning for the rest of the turn. This just locks you out of the attacking directly. I was talking to people and it almost felt like this was Anaconda. It really feels like you're summoning a DPE here, because you have that almost Scrap Dragon-like effect during either player's turn. However, you also have that extra banish on top, so it goes beyond, and you don't have to commit these main deck cards that suck, like Dasher, to make it work. We keep going down, we'll see Pearly. Pearly is a deck that I think can incorporate this card extremely well that I want to keep testing as it comes out, because you see here again, he doesn't even need to fit in the IP. He decides that once he has no RP, he's feeling fine. But again, one of the best ways to push Link Karibo into Little Knight. Banish, push. It's just really strong. If you summon this into a Noir, you banish their My Friend, and then the next time they use the Noir, they go below 5 materials, you chain, you ruin them. It forces interactions early. It forces them to make poor trades so it never hits the field, or it forces them to use several cards on the Little Knight. These are things that don't currently happen in the modern or the current format. That changing is everything. Now let's talk about cards that we can maybe predict seeing play as Little Knight grows in value, or grows in presence. I think it'll be dominant from the get-go, but some cards that I think will be popular, and I'm not sure why it's one of here, but that is Phantasme. If there's a lot of Masqueranas, that means just link something at both players' turn. That means that Phantasme is no longer a bad card to draw 6. It also means multiple Phantasme can be, valuable. Because if you go first, if your opponent goes first and you resolve a Phantasme, make IP, and then you summon Phantasme again, that's 2 free bodies as well as some hand sculpting, which can be very important. So I like this card's position into a lot of decks that are just going to be summoning a lot of SPs and IPs throughout the course of their game plan, especially in decks that are more bricky. And we'll also notice here again a lot of cards are targeting, and it's kind of why Purely Street was pretty good, and also why SP Little Knight beating Street was good, is the Phantasme kind of fills the same role of being rather effective into targeting. Obviously, SP Little Knight can force out the Phantasme, but sometimes you're going to say that's okay, let it go, and it's not a big deal, or discard a card to force out both interactions. It deals Little Knight at the cost of discarding a card, but also fixing your hand. But you know what? Trading 1 for 1 is a lot better than trading 2 for 1. And that's kind of my thought process for Phantasme right now. Things we can also look at are if they're ending on multiple darks, Super Poly, hitting IP there, obviously a great way to shut off and gives yourself a body at the same time. Doesn't feel as bad of a trade. Other things are talents. We'll keep seeing talents pop up and play, but obviously again here, this is still yet another card that is only removal based. It is not negation, and those type of cards mean that talents and thrust are going to thrive. You get your draw 2s, and you get to compensate for the lost advantage of a Little Knight by just drawing 2 cards or doing whatever else. However, if they haven't made the SP Little Knight yet and they just make IP, then and they turn on your talents, so you can just steal, and that's also very meaningful. Another card that I think we haven't seen here and hasn't been relevant for a while in the TCG is Droplet, or Chalice even. Cards that can just block the IP from resolving can be very useful for letting you prevent the SP from coming down if you're trying to break through a field. As far as going first goes, again, it does prey a little bit, to get preyed on a little bit by the like IP into SP lines, where it trades almost 2-for-1, so we have to be careful. But if you can line them up properly, this does ending up okay. Or maybe you almost have to let this card go through and then deal with it later. But I think SP Little Knight is, while talked about, it is not being hyped up enough, I think. The card is incredible. And I think this is one of the defining cards, or will be one of the next defining cards of the next format. We will see entire side decks or non-engine cards. They will largely be decided by engines, sure, but I think a big part of how you decide on them is also how they interact with Little Knight here. And I think until something else better comes out, better engines come out, or a better counter comes out, I expect that to last a while. It's been a while now in the OCG with Little Knight legal, and that hasn't changed. So when Yugioh comes out, I recommend you guys to get your 1 or 2 copies of Little Knight. I know maybe behind release, but I really think this card is that good that if anything, it probably only goes up. We're not sure what rarity it'll be yet here, but I can probably only assume it's a higher rarity. Konami, yeah, you know how they get. But yes, that's all. If you enjoyed this type of video, please let me know. Just a bit of future perspective and outlook. And right now, as we kind of wait for Yugioh to hit for the next 4 YCSs, I feel like I don't overly focus on the current format because there's not much of it left. And cards like SP Little Knight drastically change the meta so much after the fact that rather just be ahead of the curve over there. So yeah, that's all for now, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.